Our next presentation is by Elizabeth Campbell, Production Manager from the Science Museum in London, and her presentation is titled Redisplaying the Medicine Galleries at the Science Museum, London. Welcome, Elizabeth.
My name is Elizabeth Campbell and I am the Production Manager at the Science Museum in London. I manage a team producing and installing mounts and plinths for new exhibitions whilst also maintaining and refreshing existing galleries within the museum. Following a 24 million 7-year transformation, the Science Museum opened Medicine, the Wellcome Galleries, which contained 5 vast galleries taking up 3,000 square metres and containing more than 3,000 medical artefacts. 3 years prior, our in-house mount-making team was mobilized to work alongside the exhibition development team to design, build and install many thousands of object mounts. This talk will share some challenges of refreshing and remounting a permanent collection, from artificial limbs and stethoscopes to a 2-metre wide mount displaying hundreds of gallstones. Here you can see some examples of the old medicine galleries before they were stripped out in 2015 to be updated. As you can see, the galleries were in much need of a refurbishment. One of the many challenges for the mount-making team was that the permanent medicine collection had been decanted and was stored off-site in our stores at Blythe House. To be more efficient in making thousands of mounts near to the stored collection, the team created a pop-up workshop at Blythe in our unused space across from the main stores. Blythe, the production team were able to work with the exhibition development team, including design, curatorial and conservation, to do many initial mock-up object layouts before finalising the mounts. One area of the galleries that displayed a condensed number of mounted objects on backboards was the lift section, with tall wraparound glass showcases. During mock-ups and mount making, template boards were made to mount medical items and instruments. This was also to help to mark out positions on the final showcase backboards when we came to install into cases to save some time. This didn't always go to plan, as many of the board dimensions given at the time of making templates were now smaller in size on gallery, so we had to make some adjustments to some display areas. These next series of pictures show a mount for an iron malt safe on open display. These were used to protect coffins in the 18th century from body snatchers. The challenge was not to support the incredibly heavy lift as it was self-supporting an object, but to make a see-through mount within the malt safe to prevent the general public, school groups, from slotting through the lid holes various items. We found a popular choice to post through was one of our museum walk-around maps. One of the team designed and made a clear acrylic framework that was cut out on the CNC machine and slotted together. This sat within the malt safe with a fraction of a clear distance from the iron lid. One of the biggest display challenges was to create a 2-metre wide mount to display many various sizes of gallstones. Jack Scott, one of our production technicians, worked with the external designer, curatorial and conservation to meet all their needs and expectations. The stones were categorised into 5 size groups. This determined the number and size of the holes to the overall mount. The circular mount was made from Forex, which is a brand of solid polyvinyl chloride plastic. The mount was drawn up and cut out on the CNC machine. As you can see, it had to be cut out in 2 halves due to the flatbed size limitations. The mount consisted of 4 layers of forex, with the final front piece sent out externally to be cut on a bigger CNC to avoid an unsightly join down the middle, and a brass outer trim attached to the side of the mount to hide the layers of forex. Jack also designed and sourced external metal fabricators to make a heavy-duty H-style stand to attach the forex mount to. The H-stand would be hidden under the plinth in the showcase. The larger stones were directly mounted within the apertures of the main mount with brass armatures with protective heat shrink plastic. The 3 smaller sizes, many of which included tiny sized stones, were contained and mounted with pins and plastizote in lidded Petra dishes slotted into the frame. I hope you agree it's a stunning display of the gallstones. Here are a few overview pictures of the medicine galleries. I hope you have enjoyed my brief presentation of some of the many mounts the production team made. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Elizabeth. I'm back here, Elizabeth. I'm Elizabeth back here. So that's an impressive display of gallstones. I don't think I've ever seen so many. It's not really a mount question, but the body snatcher coffin, it has holes in the top.
Yep.
Do they do that for weight, or was that for off-gassing, or?
For, the actual object?
Yeah.
Yeah, they used to put lots of coffins and bodies in there, and then it's a cast iron container lid, and they'd bury it. And it's just in the 18th century, they used to, from what I read, they used to use bodies to sell for doing sort of autopsies and medical things, but they could sell them. So there was lots of grave body snatchers around the 18th century. So yeah, it had slotted and air holes at the bottom as well, and then it was put into the ground quite far down.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hi.
I have 2 questions, both related to the CNC portions. So for the grave lid, did you make a template to get that CNC part, or did you have that 3D scanned in order to come up with that shape, or how did you go about getting those measurements? And as for the gallbladder stand, were each of those pocketed depths, did you come up with those depths yourself, or do you have any information about the design of that overall piece?
So the gravestone, the coffin. So we had Constantine, which is a heavy-duty company that helps move large objects. So they lifted the lid off for us because it's extremely heavy. And then Jack measured up, took some measurements, and did a template of the lid with all the cutouts. And then he drew that up on SketchUp. And then created like a skeleton frame to cut it on the CNC and then assemble it. There was a couple of attempts because we trialed it, put the lid on, and it was just a fraction too much to be able to put paper and bits and pieces people will try. So he had made a taller frame. So yeah, it did take a couple of attempts, but got there in the end. And the gallstones, can you repeat that question, please?
For each of the pocketed sections in that mount, did you guys come up with that? Was that based on each of the gallstones? Are each of them a different depth? Like, I work mainly in CNCing. That's why these questions are so like poignant to that.
That's okay. It was mainly from a design point of view originally, and a bit curatorial in that they grouped some of the sections that they wanted to show, and I think it was a very big challenge that Jack took on, and I think collectively they all decided to come up with 5 different sizes because it just got too complicated in the end, and then worked out roughly. They did a couple of mock-ups and worked out how many gallstones would be in each one and a big one in here. So they did various mock-ups and various small sizes of holes, and came to finally the final design. But it took. I think he must have cut it out, the front piece, of 4 or 5 times at least.
Thank you.
Hi.
I love the gallstone display. There's so many little tiny parts and pieces. I'm wondering, were there predetermined locations for each of the pieces in the design plan, or was that sort of figured out on the fly as you put it together? And how did you keep track of all the little tiny gallstones while you were working?
So conservation kind of looked after the gallstones and the areas. And originally when we were based, most of it, the templates was at Blythe House, they laid it out flat and then just contained, it was kind of just like a mock-up really, and then just took loads of pictures to remember certain things. The ones in the Petri dishes, some of them are actually just sitting in the Petri dish, they're not actually secure. That some of them are so small, it's incredibly hard to just pin them. So that's why we included Petri dishes in the end for those. But yeah, they were all methodically sort of thought out and laid out, and then just taken loads of pictures, and conservation sort of made track of all that.
So in the gallstone display, it looked like some of the pockets were empty. Was that to leave space to kind of expand the display later, or was it a design choice?
Design choice by the designer.
In the last slide, was that an actual storefront that was taken down and recreated inside the museum, or was that a storefront created for the museum?
Sorry, so could you say that again?
In the very last slide,
Yep.
there was like a storefront.
The pharmacy.
The pharmacy
Yep.
storefront. Yeah, was that an actual storefront that was saved from public?
Yes.
Oh, awesome.
Yep. It's actually the original part of the original front that used to be in the old medicine galleries. Yeah, and they used, inside it has the original cabinets and stuff, and they've just revamped a lot of it, but a lot of it is the original that was on gallery.
How long was the process? Did you say from 2015 until last year?
We installed in just before COVID hit, so lost track of years, 2019, 2020.
Okay, about a 4-year project.
Yeah, we did. I mean, I inherited the project. It had already started from a map making point of view at our stores a year or so on, and then I came on and had quite a few new members that had never done map making before as well, so that was a challenge in itself. But yeah, it took a couple of years because we worked on various other projects as well, so we were working on that as well as other things, so it took a bit of time, and we were still up against it towards the end, thinking, oh, we've got loads of time. No.
How large is your team?
My team at present is 3. It should be 5, but I'm recruiting 2 new staff at the moment. But at the time we were, I had 2 people that had been there a while, and the 3 new people like me, but they didn't come from a museum background, so they had to learn quick.
Thank you.
Thanks.
We have a virtual question. How was the 4X attached?
It's attached from behind, so there's 3 layers of, I think it's 16 mil or 18 mil, and then a thinner layer at the right to the front, and they're attached where the armature is on the back. It's all screwed in together from behind, and then the front thin panel is actually glued onto the front.
Thank you, Elizabeth. What a fascinating group of objects that you've worked with.